And welcome back to the Part-Time Otaku Podcast. My name is Grant.
My name is Dave.
If you're a first-time listener, this is a anime-only podcast. This season we are covering My Hero Academia Season 5, looking like Part 1 so far. Before we get too thick into it there, we want to give a shout-out to Queen Weeb 63194 on Reddit for the Shinsho thumbnail we're using this week. Again, thank you so much. Unreal stuff, as always.
Sick art, bruh.
Yeah, it's... again... we continue to repeat ourselves, but I'm going to continue to repeat myself because each week we're blown away by all this stuff. So,
love me some pixel bit art type stuff.
Yeah, does that do it for you?
I do. I'm really into it. I got my my COVID Fauci vaccine yesterday or today or whatever it was, and the dude who did it had an 8-bit heart sleeve tattoo, like the hearts in the original Zelda and 64 games. Like he had them in the 8-bit style. I was like, yeah, okay, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty sick.
Anyway, sorry.
But anyway, so we'll just jump right into the synopsis. So the new power and all for one. As the class battles conclude, Midoriya works with All Might and Bakugou on learning more about his new power. So Dave, what's your temperature on this week's episode? Yeah.
Does that qualify?
I'll take it.
I got like low fever.
I will say I believe there's another episode after this.
Yeah.
They've hinted at that, and I'm kind of glad they didn't. It's funny. This episode ends like really well. Mm-hmm. Really, really well. But I'm glad there's another. If there is going to be like a split season situation, I'm glad we have another episode potentially. Kind of. Set up things to come.
Yeah, a little cliffhanger action. Yeah. Kick a new plot into gear. Something.
Because we are due.
Yeah,
we are well overdue.
This was I don't think we're ready to do a whole retrospective on the whole season yet. But It's been an interesting journey. I agree that the ending of this one was good, though.
Yeah.
The beginning of this episode is kind of tepid. It's pretty straightforward. It's, more or less of the same of last week's ending. They kind of rehash in the beginning, which they've done a lot this season.
A lot of this season. Like it's kind of a bit of a
kind of weird.
It's weird, but it would be interesting to keep as a note going back if either of us ever do a rewatch. Like I know you've watched it more recently, like a full series watch. It'd be interesting to go back and just make note of how often they kind of use this trope or this.
That is kind of an anime thing. Like maybe we're just being critical of it because we're not super in love with the season. I'm not sure. Because I don't know how common it is.
I don't know. Like, I think we've been pretty fair. Like, there's lots of things we love, and there's not things that we blatantly hate, but there's the pacing is weird. Maybe pacing's not even the right word for it. It's just a weird arc. It's all over this episode. Yeah. It's a weird arc, and the things that they've been not knocking out of the park have just been littered throughout the season. Yeah. And it's the same repeat offenders. At least in my, and I think also your opinion, but it's, so but again, the same thing. Like you said, the episode kind of it's more of the same, more of a recap of what we've just seen. We do get some confirmation that Shinsho is now in the hero course.
Yeah, we just don't know which class he's going to be transferring to, Class A or Class B.
The second it was like official and confirmed, he might not even be in either class. I think he might have to go back to year 1.
Oh, you think so? Oh, right, that makes sense.
I was thinking about that. I was like, that's how they're gonna use him maybe as a Mirio type character, where like he's older, he's not around, but like he's kind of involved with this crew a little bit.
Yeah.
So that would be a way, which I think would be a waste.
I kind of went the other way. I was like, I feel like we did all this exercise to like get him in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming we'll throw him into Class A because that way, like, it'll pay dividends. But then maybe not because My Hero Academia really does juggle characters, right? So they might just not need him for a while. So who knows?
Yeah. So again, that was my. It was just one of those things. Like, I was really hoping that they would set up him being in Class 1A because like I do like the character, and he's especially like his last little but his last kind of confrontation with Midoriya and showing how he wants to take that that plus ultra, he wants to go that further. That was like a nice, like, good to see him like overcome his his not his disabilities but just his inexperience and proving that, you know, he's going to get what he wants, you know, obviously for the greater good. But it would be a bummer if they kind of just turn him into a background character.
Yeah, you never really know which way they're going to go with supporting characters in this show. So they confirm that he's going to stick around, and then there's this whole thing with Copy and Midoriya remembering is it Monoma?
Monoma, yeah.
I always call him by his quirk name or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, Midoriya remembers the brief moment in which he thought that Monoma stole copied his quirk, and that sort of sets up something that happens later, because then Aizawa kind of shows up and is like, "Hey, Monoma, come visit Eri tomorrow." And I don't think we've seen her all season. Is that accurate?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, if they're... Yeah, I don't think we have, actually. We've seen Mirio, because he was in the very beginning of the season, but...
Which one's Mirio? Lemillion? Yeah. Did you notice, by the way, we're going to come to that scene momentarily, when they cut to Mirio and Eri, they show their names and quirks, even though I don't think Lemillion has had his quirk officially restored at all, right?
Yeah, I think it's just like, you know, it's like a baseball card, right? Like
sure.
You're always going to have that,
right.
You know, that stat, even though like the situation might have been changed, but like he's forever going to be known as the guy with that quirk kind of thing.
True that.
But yeah, Lemillion.
Such a good character.
God.
The arc when he was introduced, so good. That whole season was great. But before that, we get this whole Bakugou and Midoriya training with All Might scene, which I actually really liked. It was very, like, hyperbolic time chamber-esque, like Goku and Vegeta.
Yeah.
I guess, like,
I couldn't put my finger on it, but it's funny you say that. I get that now, yeah.
Well, I guess it's more of like a Dragon Ball Super thing, but they're constantly competing, and those two characters really, like, are basically the essence of the show at one point, or basically throughout that whole new series. And yeah, they have a lot of moments like this, and like there's like they even have a mentor character that's like watching over them. You know what I mean? It was very DBSE. Anyway, yeah, but it seems like Midoriya, or I should say All Might and Bakugou are trying to like pressure the quirk to come out, or they're trying to like train Midoriya to try and keep it under wraps, which is an interesting thing. Like, I guess they're more or less experimenting to see what's going to happen. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so. Well, because it's an unknown, right? Like, it's, you know, they're officially in dark waters, you know? Like, All Might's kind of out of
his depth.
He's out of his depth, and he doesn't have too much, you know, like, when it comes to, like, wisdom and, you know, trying to guide Midoriya. Like, you know, he's been, like, clutch up until now, but, you know, it's like we had said a week or two ago, you know, he's officially, like, the baton has been almost fully passed. Like, there's other things he can teach him, obviously, but when it comes to, like, specifically mastering a quirk that he has no association to.
It was interesting that he has no idea about this.
Or the guy. Or the hero, too, which you would think there would be some intentional history, you know?
Yeah, you would think that they would keep track of more than just their predecessor and potentially their predecessor's predecessor. Like, you would think that they would document everyone who's held it, the length of time they've held it for. You just think that would be something that they would want to do, because the whole point of the quirk is, you know, passing it on, cultivating it. You just think that there would be something.
Yeah, I guess at the very least within the people that wield it, right? Like, I understand, like, you know, One for All it's meant to be a secret, right? Like, no, obviously, like, the fact that, you know, it's brought up, not more or less brought up in this situation, but, like, the fact that Bakugou knows, and there's other heroes, obviously, like, people of certain character that they can trust know about it, but it's not, you know, the general public can't know. So I understand why they don't want, like a paper trail kind of thing. But like I said, you would think All Might would have an idea of
some
who this
knowledge,
guy was. Or some history of someone with
generational info that gets passed on to you when you get the quirk, right?
Yeah.
I did want to make note very quickly of this whole scene. I liked this whole scene of the three of them talking about it. I was surprised, and I feel like it's a moment. It's noteworthy that Bakugou is there. I mean, Midoriya says, "I'm surprised you're here." For this moment, right? And it's that, you know, All Might says, well, he kind of knows our secret. He's your classmate, you know, so he's aware of the whole One for All thing.
But he knows how to draw the best out of Midoriya.
Yeah, so
that's probably maybe like an unspoken thing. Like All Might chose, like it's probably to his advantage that Bakugou knows now. It's probably a relief, and he can have these two kind of duke it out and like unleash on each other. It's again it's unsaid, but
use them to spur the other one on.
Yeah,
like they're better together than they are apart.
100%.
Which is
it's debatable, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's an interesting thing. Like it just feels like as far as One for All is concerned, or All for One is that whole thing, it feels like Bakugou is just part of this now.
Yeah.
He's not really quote directly involved, but he's a part of it.
And I think it'll help with his character development because it's he needs it. Yeah, he needs it, and I think this is like a good caveat or like a catalyst to develop his character. Him being not so much because he's in on the secret, but he can also be a part of the growth of Midoriya.
Agreed. And at the same time, it allows his character to branch out, right? Mm-hmm. He's actually the one that says in this scene, he goes, this reminds me of One for All, or All for One. Sorry, it reminds multiple quirks manifesting. It reminds me of the bad guy.
Yeah.
So he's kind of the one to maybe connect the dots. But then All Might says, like, okay, that's it's kind of what I didn't want to say out loud.
Which
interesting
is probably like one of the things. It's not like I didn't buy it. It was just it seemed a little heavy-handed, and it's like it almost seemed like Bakugou was being openly negative about it, like almost a little sour.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I read into it wrong, but it's it is, but it's not that. You know what I mean? Like you would think, and I was kind of more surprised by All Might. Like you think he would have more, understanding of the situation to know that it's not really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously it stems from All for One, but again, that's so inside baseball. It's out of like their knowledge at this point. Like they don't know like I guess Midori would be the only one that knows the true history of how like the original, One for All, or like the younger brother, how he got the power, right?
Yeah.
Or is that like a known? Is that known?
I can't remember what they said as far as I don't think All Might ever said that he actually spoke to the original holder.
Yeah.
I think he said he had like weird moments and stuff, and like he learned mostly about the quirk from his mentor. So I don't think he's had like the dreams and the connections that Midoriya has had at this point.
But Midori is seeing the visions of All for One giving it. So you think he'd be in the know, and I don't know, like it's a great scene. It seemed to me a little like sour to be sour.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I don't know. Again, it's more Bakugou being Bakugou too, and he's a little flip-floppy in this scene for me, if I'm being honest. I don't know.
He can be very hit and miss, right? Like it only works when they utilize him well, which they do later in the episode. So this more or less wraps up. They cut from this discussion back to the training session, and it's just sort of Midoriya's internal monologue, more or less saying like, oh, I have this mental... He basically says it's a mental block about using Black Whip. Like maybe he accidentally gave himself a mental block and he shouldn't. And he's just sort of seems to be juggling or trying to figure out if he'll be able to use this Black Whip quirk. It sort of remains unclear at this point. Like, it's not, firing off accidentally in his drills, which seems to be an improvement. And as far as Bakugou goes, he just gets impatient. He pisses off and leaves.
So do you think that ending, just with Midoriya and the whole mental block thing, do you think that's a retcon of a retcon?
Yeah, that was fucking weird.
Do you think they're so like we had that whole thing last episode where you and I are like we're just over the moon upset, and it all feels like they're already backsliding on it.
Yeah, I don't get it. I would hesitate to call it a retcon because it's in such incredibly quick successsion.
Yeah.
I just feel like it was sloppily handled.
Yeah. Well, when I say retcon, but like you know what I mean, like it's flip flopping whether he can or can't use it.
Flip-flopping.
It's I don't know.
And I get it. Like this is stemming from the fact that he's an unsure kid in really precarious circumstances. But like, you could have done a better job communicating that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the fact that he was unsure and he's hesitant, and there are a lot of questions here. Like, I buy that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I did not buy this weird rationalization. Like, you know what I mean? That part's all weird to me.
Yeah.
back at the dorms, Tetsu and Red Riot are arguing about the match, which is fun.
Just trying to positive on each other. I love
it. And then I like that they say like, oh, a lot of the Class B people are here. It's like sort of a little bit party at the dorms because
that was nice to see.
Yeah, it'd be cool to combine the classes or even like combine them just even their dorms or something so that you had some sort of like ancillary way of just getting these characters to bump into one another more often,
more cafeteria scenes, like seeing like everyone's eating lunch and there's like Class B members like every episode there's like a random one kind of like around like I 100% agree, Dave. That's a good idea. I hope we see that. I really do.
Yeah, there's a moment with Todoroki and Midoriya about I kind of like this scene for a different reason. Todoroki approaches Midoriya and he's like, yo, like, were you holding back in like season fucking 2 or something? It's more or less what he's saying because he notices that Midoriya has this weird quirk and he's sort of saying like, oh, that's kind of like what you said to me back then. And Midoriya is relatively sly and being like, yeah, it's like a different permutation of my own quirk. It's very new to me. I'm very confused. So that's all fine and good. Oh, I also like that Todoroki texts his dad.
Yeah. I love when it cuts to his dad and he's like, who would have guessed he texted me?
And he's holding a villain with one arm. Yeah. And he's got his phone with the other. I like that. But I liked the Bakugou moment. He's just sort of sitting there because he's not as dumb as you think sometimes, right?
No.
He's sitting there evaluating what Todoroki knows as like a play. He's like, oh, so you're not a total idiot, are you? Like half and half, which is like kind of a funny line to begin with.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you just don't think of Bakugou that way, like sitting quietly, observing and evaluating people. That's a very Midoriya-ish like thing to do. Sit there with a notebook and make observations.
When you think about it, Bakugou is only loud when someone like talks to him. It's like a defense mechanism. Like he's not openly antagonizing people. Well, I guess that's not true. Like, I feel like earlier in the seasons he was more of a bully, but that was like him coming straight out of like, I guess, them going from elementary school like kind of into like this Hero Academia kind of thing. So it's I really like after everything that has happened this season with Bakugou. It doesn't have to be this season, but like I think we are really due for like a huge change of character, like that next true genuine step.
They're making, they have made strides this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that like, it feels like he's on his way. Right?
Yeah.
And
which is good to see.
Yeah, it's good to see. It's funny. Like trying to think of like character development. There's obviously Shinsho and Bakugou. Other than this quirk thing, Midoriya just hasn't had a lot to do.
No.
So, this is like, these last couple of episodes with Midoriya have been like the big development for him, but I hope that we get more for both of them in season 5. That pretty much wraps up the dorm scene, and then we flash to the whole. Oh no! Wait, yeah. There's a meeting of Aizawa leaving the school meeting, and it just appears very quickly as though they've made a decision on Shinsho, but like they don't tell the audience.
No,
because why would they? So yeah, we still don't know where Shinsho is going as far as classes go. But then the next thing is this whole lore. What'd you call it? Lore, quirk, exposition, function, mechanical dump on.
Oh yeah,
how Monoma's copy quirk works.
Oh yeah, the mechanics of how
everything
works. Which, yeah, that was interesting. That was good to know, and because like the whole blank thing gets some definition, which was I think needed.
There were question marks on that for both of us. I think in the episode that he mentioned it wasn't clear.
Because it was him saying blanks. Yeah. Oh, it was a blank, and then it was kind of like, okay, well, this is something he's aware of his own quirk.
Yeah.
So that's I'm glad. Like I said, I'm glad they filled that out, and it was good to see the dynamic between. He's like a shit, and then I was like, okay, like let's do this, and then like he's like good, like all right, it's time to kind of do something for the teacher.
We got a bit of that with him when he was playing mind games with Midoriya at the beginning of their match. It's like he's still annoying, but like he's working now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was kind of good. So yeah, he for a second there, I was like, oh, like, what if, like, he gets this quirk and, like, he can just fix Lemillion, he can tutor Eri, that really does solve all the problems.
Mm-hmm.
But instead it serves as this moment to just sort of explain how his quirk works. But it does also show that, like, they are actively still trying to solve the Eri problem. You know what I mean? Like, they're still
reminding us.
Yeah, like, hey...
It almost makes me wonder if that is going to come up this season again.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely don't have to keep threads alive in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as we've mentioned several times, like, there's just so much going on. There's so many characters. You know, juggling all that is really hard. So, like, you can tell, like, when they need to drop a character because they don't have relevance to their existing plot, they just drop it and they'll pick it up later. Like, you know, we haven't seen Hawks since, like, the pilot of this series, of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, because we know him, they'll just pick him up later and it'll be fine. Same with, you know, Dobby and all those characters. So, in this instance, it feels like they're bringing up the Eri thing. I'm assuming it'll be relevant, right?
Yeah, it's a tee up.
That's not like a, you know, they could have explained the mechanics of Copy's quirk at any point. They didn't need to do this scene.
Exactly.
So
no, I agree.
After that, this is like the last act of the episode, and I thought it was actually handled pretty well. And that's Todoroki and Bakugou are going to get their provisional license tests.
I could have done with a few more of these this season.
I know.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of a bummer because it was so fun.
Yeah, it was so short too.
Yeah. But did it confuse you at first? Because they start their provisional license test. And then there's Orca.
I had this semi-spoiled for me.
What?
Just because it was just like a screen grab on Twitter, and it was just like Bakugou and Todoroki like in action. Clearly, I was like, fuck, like something goes down. Yeah. And I remember thinking like they're in their school clothes. It looked like that you could see like the lights from the buildings. And I was like, maybe something goes down this episode. It's like, because they still have to get their licenses and all that. And then this pops up. I was like, okay, I know exactly what's about to happen here.
And you just reminded me, I got a main plot, one for all spoiler. Like this
really?
week. I was looking for the fan art, and I was looking at on the subreddit. And I never usually look at the comments, but there was one comment that was like upvoted to it was at the very top, and the art was small and the whole screen loaded, and I read the comment and it was like, oh, this whole thing with one for all, and I was like, fucking no.
Oh, like how far in like the future?
I don't know. Like, it's about the main villain guy, or all for one, I should say, and something he does, and like the problem is like we've talked about this, like the manga is so big, it's like entering its final arc, but like
sure,
so you know, this could be next season or it could be in like 5 from now. The one benefit I have, I guess, is that like if it's really far out, the chances are I will forget, you know what I mean? Like if this spoiler thing doesn't happen for like 2-3 seasons, of which there definitely will be for this show,
sure, then
there's no way I'm remembering it, you know what I mean?
There you go. That's a good side of it.
I'm kind of lazy like that. So anyway, I like what they do in this, like how they handle the scene, because they just show the audience that they start the exam. Car. Yeah. And then, they show that you start the exam, and then you cut to a villain showing up. And then the whole, them using, like you just see their provisional license badge.
Yeah.
And who is it? Is it All Might who says, you've only had those for 30 minutes?
He's chasing them out of the car. Like, that's what it cuts to the scene, is like him like ripping out of the car. They're already gone.
Yeah.
And he's like calling after them. I was like, oh shit, here we go.
Oh, yeah. And because I remember this now. So the villain shows up surfing, you know, giant wave through the streets, as you do.
Carbonation
quirk.
Love this.
Yeah.
I was laughing my ass off.
Stealing, it's so funny. Like, he has such like a fantastical, overwhelming quirk, and he's like after purses. Like, he's like a petty like street thief. He's like, I can bring the ocean into the city, but I'm just after a couple purses.
Oh fuck!
But
so silly. It's the silliness I like. It's it's super light. The levity.
But Bakugou and Todoroki show up. They freeze the water and they start attacking the villains. And there's this cool line where, All Might says, "You only had your passes or licenses for 30 minutes." And then I think it's Bakugou or Todoroki. One of them goes, "How many minutes do we have to pass before we can be heroes?" And there's this cool shot of them, like the two of them in one frame.
That's the one I saw. That was the frame.
Yeah, and I was like, "Fucking yeah!" and then it's just like then it's My Hero fucking in like its true form. It's heroes against villains, like saving innocent bystanders. We won't go do the whole play-by-play. Yeah, but like it's fucking killer.
It's awesome. Like this is what I'm talking about. This is like we could have used like 3 or 4 more of these littered throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure.
Even more cutaways to like Endeavor or someone doing something on the street. Like I know it takes away. And obviously, like, that's hours logged and, money. Like, I get that. But, like, fuck,
just
man. Like,
remind us about the world that the show takes place in, right? Yeah. And that's what this did. Because there hasn't been any of that this season. Or if there has been, it's been very, very little. I don't, as far as noteworthy moments in this whole fight, I think Bakugou gets a couple good kicks in. He, like, takes out all the henchmen. Todoroki has this, like, what does he call it?
The flash
freeze heat wave. Yeah. Killer animation. Knocks the villain out. And then the pro hero, Slide and Go? Is that his name? Some actual pro hero comes. That was another good moment. Like, he shows up. Yeah. Like, even the way his face is, like, the way he's animated. He's like, "Oh, hey, guys." Like,
I don't know why, but he reminded me of Mineta.
Oh, fuck. I see that.
A little bit, just like kind of like the over the top face and
the face animation,
almost the unmatching visual style.
Yes,
to the rest of the cast.
Yep, 100%. I agree. Good pick. All Might has a moment. He saves a lady from a falling lamppost.
You still got it
with no quirk, no abilities. I love that like they give him a quick moment to be like, this guy's still a hero. You don't need a quirk to be a hero, which is like harkens all the way back to the pilot. They pretty much give this one to the pro hero Slide and Go. Like, they tied this thing up in a bow. They've apprehended all the bad guys. They got all the purses. Like, it just shows, I think, that these particular characters have come very far, especially considering they failed the first time around to get these licenses. So I feel like this was a good way to be like, they've learned some lessons. They're here to party. Yeah. And then I enjoyed like the typical like Bakugou talking shit to Todoroki at the end of the episode.
I'm not helping.
He's like, "Let's go home. I need to melt the ice. I'm not helping you." Like, just because you're a prick.
I love it. I love Bakugou. But also too, I just thought of it now. It was funny when they do set up the like them all at the provisional license. Mm-hmm. There was like a couple characters. I was like, who the fuck are they? Like, I know there's like the hurricane dude, and then there's the girl that can change.
I remember those two and no one else.
But there's just this I think at least there's this one other girl, and she was like in a green outfit. I'm like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah. A couple there. I mean, the hurricane guy, that's another good example of like, they did a good job introducing that character, giving him some heat for a few episodes, and then like the arc was over, and they're like, okay, moving on. We'll pick this back up when we need it.
Yeah, he'll be back.
I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's
strong
one of those, a strong ending, but it's another one of those weird episodes where, like the episodes are always the same length, but it's somehow there's a lot fitted into a small time, and it goes by so fast, even though there is so much that happens. It's one of those shows that just has that ability. Like, when you watch Attack on Titan, or whatever, you just feel the length of it, or it feels short because it naturally is flowing in one motion. It's My Hero just has this weird ability of like cutting everything down into different little arcs from the episode, and you're like, oh shit, we're over. It's been 24 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, really, really, really great third act. So anyway, we'll be back next week, assuming there's an episode. Thank you guys very much for listening. We do this pretty much same time every week for My Hero Academia. And check out the post show. Comes out about 2 days later. It's a little bit more of a relaxed podcast. We talk about just other shows, anime and not anime, that we're watching. This one and that's going to drop in the next couple days, I think is going to be pretty packed because we've got lots to discuss outside of My Hero. So thank you again for listening, and you know what? Sorry, Dave. I'm going to cut you off. I'm sorry there, Dave. If anyone listening, if you think we're being a little too hard on this season or currently what we're seeing, please by all means reach out to us on any of the socials. You know, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, Instagram. You know, like, we would love a discourse. Like I said, we kind of come off as a little tough on it this season, specifically My Hero. We love it, but you know, we have some opinions. Yep.
We would love, like I said, if you disagree with us, tell us. You know, by all means, like reach out.
We are happy to talk about it. Definitely, yeah. And we're happy to hear what you guys like, dislike about this. You know, about the whole season, about shows or the whole episodes in particular. Definitely happy to talk about that. I think that just about does it. Thank you for listening. We'll be here next week. Check out the post show. And like Grant said, we're on all the socials, so hit us up there. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.